who better to help us do this than an advocate himself when it comes to the environment, Desmond Majekodunmi. It's so good to see you this morning, Desmond. Thank you for joining us, and good morning. Can you hear me, Desmond?
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So let's hit the ground running, right? What are the most effective strategies for advocating for environmental policy changes?
Well, the most effective thing is just to let people appreciate the importance of environment. In fact, I would pose a question to both of you in the studio right now.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I'm going to give you a challenge. We are going to give you a prize of 2 million naira each.
Wow.
If you, or in fact, any of your listeners or viewers can do this test.
Bring it on, Majek. Bring it on.
I'm ready.
Okay. All right, my brother. But I know that my money is very safe because this test is an impossible task. Can you hold your breath for 20 minutes?
Oh, Lord. How come you're saying this? I was looking forward to grabbing that 2 million.
Yes.
But you know, the answer is no. There's no way I can hold my breath for even 10 minutes. You know, talking of 20.
In fact, if you do it more than 10 minutes, we will call you Mami Watao. Yeah. So then the other question, as I'm sure a lot of us know, why can we not hold our breath for such a long time? Because we need what? Oxygen, our most essential commodity, far more essential than every other thing that we seem to hold very, very valuable. But of course, it's not just oxygen that comes from the environment. It's the water that comes from a healthy environment. It's the food. It's the medicine. Everything. The environment is our life support system. Okay? And if we damage it or if we, distort it, then it's going to affect us. And if we distort it too badly, it'll wipe us out. And unfortunately, this is what we've been seeing in different parts of the world, even parts of our own dear country, Nigeria. Just a couple of days ago, there was some terrible floods in some of the states, and those wiped people out. And these things, whilst they do occur naturally at times, they are being exaggerated, exacerbated by our negative impact on the environment, particularly the air pollution. But it's also the soil pollution, the water pollution, the destruction of many, many species. So we as human beings, not just Nigerians, but we as human beings are actually impacting very, very negatively globally on our environment. And here in Nigeria, where we're blessed with a wonderful, wonderful environment, we're also causing too much damage, and it's giving us a lot of negative impacts. So the main thing is to create awareness about how important the environment is. Again, we repeat, it is our life support system.
Thank you very much. You mentioned something about flood. So it brings me to my next question. What roles the government, corporations, NGO playing in shaping environmental policy? I mean, just this morning, we had about 3.6 million Nigerians at risk, and about a lot of communities at risk regarding this flood. How did we even get to this level, and what can we do to quickly get out of this situation?
Yeah, it's very worrisome. That's a lot of people at risk, and that's just an estimate. That risk factor could increase very dramatically because what we're having now in different parts of the world and even in Nigeria is very heavy rainfall. In fact, they call it rain bomb. That you can have 2 weeks rain, 3 weeks rain, can fall in one day. And this is a very difficult situation to contain. But the most important thing is, at least, let's enhance what nature has. There's ways that nature deals with extra rain, with what could be flooding. the streams will carry the water into the rivers carry it, it ends up in the sea, and the cycle continues. However, if we disable the ability of those streams and rivers to carry enough of this water, you're going to have terrible floods. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about the silting of erosion. You see, we've cut down too many trees, too much of the vegetation that is near the rivers, that is on the river banks. And these trees and vegetation, it's not just that they're giving us that essential commodity, the oxygen. The root zone of those trees and vegetation, they are holding the soil together, preventing erosion. So we clear all these trees and vegetable, as soon as water comes, erosion, and then that erosion puts more sand into the bottom of the streams, the river beds and so on. It gives it less ability. So we need to stop cutting down so much. We need to start replanting. And we're happy to see that there are some programs which have been taken quite seriously now, especially in Lagos, but other states as well, where they are pushing for serious replanting. At least the announcements have been made and some of the programs have started, but this needs to be taken far more seriously. It's no longer a crisis. United Nations Secretary General, 2015, he said, this environment issue, it's a crisis. By 2023, when we started recording the hottest year ever recorded by humanity, he said, no, it's not a crisis anymore. It's an emergency. And we need to treat it as an emergency and prioritize. Okay, so to make sure that we cause less damage, or to at least prevent the damage from becoming too much, reduce the pollution. And we're seeing some, little signs in that direction of, getting vehicles and generating machines that are not so polluting as before, but also massive regreening. There's a reason why our flag in Nigeria is green, white, green. That's why I'm wearing this. You see, green, small white, green.
Yeah, now let me ask you, you talked about extreme rainfall in some parts of Nigeria. Flip the coin. In Benue State, North Central, Nigeria's food basket, it's not been raining. There's been no rain. And yesterday it was in the papers that farmers are crying that there's drought in the land and this could lead it to food insecurity. Now, you talked about the UN saying this is an emergency now. How do you explain this irregular rainfall pattern where in the same Nigeria, extreme rainfall on one hand, on the other hand, there is no rainfall? Is it due to natural causes? And then what can be done though?
Very, very, very good question. You see, again, it comes back to the way that we have abused nature, abused our mother, the ultimate mother. That's why they call her Mother Nature for a reason. She's a typical mother. She gives us everything that we need. And, can anybody listening to me, or even you two in the studio, can you even dare to think of slapping your mama?
No way.
But that's what we're doing collectively as human beings, as Nigerians. We're actually slapping mama. Now, the thing about Mother Nature is she goes by the inviolable laws of action begetting reaction. What you sow into nature is what you reap. You cannot plant cassava and harvest cocoa. Now, that's the reality. So again, back to the vegetation. You see, part of the rain cycle, and it's a very complex cycle, and that's why we refer to creation as a miracle of creation. It's a very complex, miraculous cycle. Because what happens is when the rain falls, even if it's very heavy in a certain area, the trees and the thick vegetation there, they absorb the water into their root zone, they take it up, and they eventually evaporate it through the leaves, through a process called transvaporation. So this puts more moisture that has fallen in that area up into the air, into the atmosphere, and then the breezes blow. And the fact that the breeze even blows, that's a whole other science behind that. But anyway, the breeze blows and it carries the moisture to another location. And again, it now falls as rain. So the cycle of rain going forward and forward continues. But if you remove the vegetation, then you've put a stopgap. So there's no opportunity for that rain that had fallen in one area to now be lifted up by the trees and put back into the atmosphere through transvaporation. So again, back the green. So these areas will not be going through what they're going through. We cannot afford to have food scarcity, especially in a country like Nigeria that is so richly endowed with fantastic, wonderful, fertile soil. It's a great country. Oh, yes. So green, green, green. That's what we're promoting. Trees, 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 and even more trees.
Very well said.
Thank you very much. I'd like to take you up on something that we don't seem to put into consideration, which is wildlife. If you go to most of our national zoos, it's an eyesore. I can't remember if any of our zoos have lions, zebras, giraffes, and all that. So what is happening to the wildlife? I know Nigerians love meat. We love to we kill all kinds of animals and put them on our plates and all that. So, but how can, because wildlife also matters, how can we maintain the wildlife also?
You hit the nail on the head. Wildlife also matters. Again, it's part of the miracle of creation. And when we're looking at the wildlife, and we're not just talking of the big animals, although they're extremely important, like the elephants and the lions. They all have specific roles to play. For instance, the elephant opens up pathways in the bush, in the forest, that other animals can go through. And then in the dry season, the tusk of the elephant, he uses it to dig the ground to get water. And he's not greedy. After he drinks, other animals come and drink water that the elephant has excavated for them. So yes, the wildlife, hey, you see, it's part of the web of life. Like a spider's web.
Yes.
If you remove one strand, you move another strand, eventually you move a final strand, and then the whole web
breaks
and start to collapse. And this is what we're doing with the web of life, the wonderful, miraculous web of life in Nigeria. And unfortunately, it's a recent development because our forefathers, they were quite wise about it. They only hunted the animals at a certain time. They know when the gestation period is going to come, when the animals will be giving birth and pregnant. They wouldn't hunt at that time. They wouldn't generally hunt for the young ones that allow them to grow. But now we're doing it in a very, very aggressive way. And unfortunately, we need to curtail our desire for the bush meat. There's other ways of getting meat without having to just, rip up all the wildlife that's there. It's very, very, very important. And we're trying to advocate for that, to actually be a lot more friendly to the wildlife, a lot more friendly to nature. Otherwise, she's going to hit us back.
As we wrap this up, where there is desire, it's not always easy to control yourself. Like Olumide said, Nigerians love wildlife, bushmeat, like we call it here. Now, this is a question, how do you balance, the desire for wildlife and protecting the environment? Now, I remember talking to an expert like yourself not too long ago, that rabbit, which is a form of wildlife, is very proteinous and delicious. Now, instead of going into the forest to hunt them down and kill all of them and have them go extinct, why don't you farm them in a particular location? And then you have people come to buy and sell as well. So you have the species protected and not going extinct. I don't know, this is one of the ways, but what do you think? What else can be done to also continue to eat what you want, but also protect the environment?
No, exactly. You're absolutely right. We need to go into farming of these types of animals that, people desire. They're very, very, very tasty. There's no doubt about that. We need to go into a lot more and they can be farmed. The rabbits, the bushmeat, all those things, they can actually be farmed. And, rather than going into the forest. But also, I think the main thing is just, protect our forest reserves.
Yes.
And that's also been a challenge. That's been a big challenge in the past. We haven't really protected them the way we should protect them. And it also leads to insecurity, although I hear there's some moves now to increase the forest rangers and so on. So, don't come hunting in these reserves. We must just leave it intact like that. And then, farm them and so on and so forth. But also, there's nothing wrong with, consuming more vegetables. The human species is actually omnivorous.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. You're very, very right. I wish we could go on and on, Desmond, but this is where we get to wrap it up. Thank you so much for being brilliant on the show this morning, as usual. Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure. And next time we'll have a competition where maybe you'll be able to win some of that money.
Yes, I want that 2 million. I want it. All right, that was Desmond Majekodunmi, environmentalist.